Well, let's just say a top 20 matchup between the two, and week 2 will get spicy. Michigan at Oklahoma there, and some major playoff implications between the two. Week 1 was good for both sides. Michigan coming off a 34-17 win over New Mexico. Meanwhile, the Sooners coming off a 35-3 victory over Illinois State there. And somebody's always going to have to go once we get to Saturday. But take a look at all-time meetings between the two. The Orange Bowl in 1976. And then 2025, this is what we're going to get here between the two sides. And let's just say it's going to be very, very spicy, as I mentioned, between these two. And let's just say a lot of playoff implications that we want to see. But before we get to that, I want to open the conversation and bring in our guys here, Sam Webb and Josh Callaway, representing 24/7 Sports for both sides of this. And let's start with the QBs, because that's what everybody's going to have their eyes on here. And Bryce Underwood and John Mateer going toe-to-toe in this matchup. And Sam, I'll let you have the floor. What are your expectations for Bryce here?
For him to be not your typical freshman, just like in week 1, Brandon, I think you see the physical talent, and everyone kind of expects him to be otherworldly in his ability to throw the football a long way and run around. But the way that he handles pressure, the magnitude of the moment, was just different. And it's been that way since we first saw him on the high school stage. You still expect for the transition to take a little longer than it did, but it was right away at Michigan. You got to credit him and just his mental makeup, his upbringing, his mom, his dad, his quarterback coach, his high school coach. They all did a great job. But then I also think you got to credit Michigan, Sharon Moore, Chip Lindsey, his offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. They did a great job with the plan as well for getting him comfortable. If you look at Michigan and how they came out, typically you would expect them to come out, smash mouth, condensed formations, get downhill, kind of take pressure off of him that way. They came out in the spread formation, ran a bubble screen, they went tempo, rushed to the line, didn't let him think, and just kind of really let him get into a rhythm just by going quick and then doing some RPOs, doing some things very familiar that allowed him to get comfortable, and it was off to the races. So I expect him to start the same way, and I think that'll do a lot to make him get at ease and be comfortable to kind of start that game in a very uncomfortable environment down there in Norman.
Yeah, on the Oklahoma side, John Mateer is a very popular guy around here right now. Obviously, a lot of excitement around him really since he got here back in the winter. After Oklahoma's offense a year ago, one of the worst in program history. I mean, there was a lot of hope with him and Ben Arbuckle coming over from Washington State that it was going to be a lot different in 2025. And one game in, it looked great. I mean, John Mateer, 392 yards in the season opener, broke Baker Mayfield's record for passing yards in an OU debut. Not a bad guy, to have a record broken from with Baker. Obviously, expectations are really, really high for John the rest of the way. And this is a spot this weekend where on a national stage, there's some thought like he goes and plays well right into the Heisman conversation. Excitement really, really high, certainly for John Mateer. You look at what he did on Saturday, running the ball, making plays with his feet when he needed to. He ran for a touchdown, over 400 total yards. He was decisive, throwing darts all over the field. He wasn't perfect. He had a couple mistakes, but at the end of the day, 30 of 37, like I said, over 400 total yards. After what Oklahoma had at the quarterback position last year, you will definitely sign up for that every single time. A really good debut for John last weekend, and now here we go. Obviously, a massive spot for him again on Saturday with Michigan coming in here.
Josh, you brought up a good point, and same to Josh's point here in terms of the environment and Bryce, as you said, getting comfortable there in that first game. How might that environment affect Bryce here? Do you expect anything in this one for him?
Yeah, I think he's a human being at the end of the day. As steely as he is, even for a freshman, as immune as he seems to be to the pressure, I think it has to affect him. So they're going to do all the typical things that you expect them to do, playing the music loud and practice, working on silent counts and all of those things that you do to work on helping him deal with the noise, deal with the spectacle and all of that comes with being on the road. But again, I think it gets back to the game plan. How do you make him comfortable with that? I think the comfort with the scheme, the comfort with the plan will lead to the comfort in the environment. And I think Chip Lindsey has really dialed into his guy really, really early. And I think his experience with guys like Drake May and all of his travels as a coordinator and a head coach have really helped him be ready for this. And I think that's going to be the key. And part of it, I also think, Brandon, so I think you're going to see him tell Bryce, listen, if you're getting a pinch and you're feeling a little uncomfortable with what to do, get out and run a little bit. We didn't see any of that in week 1. I think we're going to see that here in week 2 down there in Norman.
Speaking of a run, Josh, when you think about it, John has maybe a chip on his shoulder in terms of that non-conference home win streak up to 20 here. You're talking about Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams. They've held their own. Your thoughts on him maybe keeping that streak moving here?
Yeah, I mean, like most places, Oklahoma takes a lot of pride in winning at home. And, you think of last season going into that Alabama game, which was the final home game of a year ago. It was a rough year. It was 5-5 at that point, but the crowd was up for it. They were energized. They were ready, and Oklahoma put together their best performance of the year. I think there's a very real chance we get a similar scene on Saturday. Excitement's really high for this team, and there is a belief on Oklahoma's side that the crowd and with Brent Venables' defense, what he can throw at a freshman quarterback, that can be the way that they will try to win this game. Obviously, offense, we just talked about it. John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle, it's reinvented. There's a lot of excitement, but Oklahoma still looks to win games with Brent Venables on defense. And you pair that with the crowd, freshman QB, on paper, it looks like something that Oklahoma could theoretically take advantage of. So, yeah, they've been really good at home. They rode the home crowd last year. Even in the earlier season game against Tennessee, what they lost, defense was incredible, riding the wave and the emotion of the fans. So that's definitely an aspect that Oklahoma's going to look to take advantage of again on Saturday, no matter really who it would be against, but especially when you loop in the fact that it is a freshman making his first road start in front of 90,000 people. That'll be absolutely juiced up on Saturday night.
Yeah, the last time they lost was Ohio State 2016, but then the previous year, the next year, that's when Baker hit us with the flag planting that we see every single year. Sam, when it comes to Brandon, of course, that will be a big spot missing on that defense, the targeting call there. How might that impact Michigan here in this game?
Yeah, he's their best defense. Jayshawn Barham is Michigan's best defensive player. It didn't really manifest as much. You didn't see him make as many plays. I don't think they showcased him as much, Brandon, in week 1. But I think maybe you will see when he comes out in the second half, them kind of move him around the defense a lot more. I think that his absence won't be quite as noticeable because they are so deep in the linebacker room. Jimmy Rolder came in, played extremely well. They consider him another starter at linebacker. Cole Sullivan is a guy they've been raving about in practice. They are super deep at linebacker, but there is no escaping the fact that as far as athleticism goes, now experience, Jayshawn Barham can line up and be their best edge if you wanted him to be. He's their most talented linebacker as well. He could be a first-round draft pick at the end of the day. You don't sit a guy down like that and not miss it because he can be a havoc wreaker. So him not being out there in the first half can impact them, but I don't think it'll be a debilitating loss because they're so deep at the linebacker position.
Yeah, potentially a huge storyline, right? I mean, we'll see how it shakes out on Saturday. I'm very interested. We're going to hear from Ben Arbuckle and Brent Venables here in just less than an hour. I'm actually at the stadium right now with the press conference here coming up. Very curious to hear what they both have to say about what they think the impact of that's going to be on the game, especially Ben Arbuckle, obviously. Is Oklahoma going to try and make a concerted effort to try and attack, the back end of the depth chart a little bit with Barham out? I mean, those are questions that remain to be seen. I mean, I think about on the Oklahoma side, if a Kip Lewis or one of their top defensive players had to miss the first half, that would be tough. And I feel like Oklahoma really feels great about their overall depth, but it's still, I mean, you lose a guy who's a top end talent like that, even if it's just for a half, it can be significant. So major storyline for sure. And again, like I said, I'm very interested to see, especially Ben Arbuckle here in a little bit, what his kind of read of that situation is. And does that affect Oklahoma's game plan, or do they try and roll with what they were going to before and not let it, try to keep it within themselves? Those are questions that will have to be answered, obviously, over the course of the week, but definitely a major storyline going into Saturday.
We'll find out what happens there. This is the part of the segment where I need both of you guys to part like the sea and pick a winner here. And Josh, since you have home field advantage, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I do think Oklahoma's going to play really well on Saturday. I'm going to lean Oklahoma's going to win the game. I think of last year, there were so many times, especially at home, where the defense played phenomenal and they set this team up to have a chance to win, but offensively they just didn't have the ability to capitalize. That Tennessee game I referenced earlier, a fumble within the 5, another turnover that led to no points because the offense was frankly a disaster last season, and it seems to be in a much better place. They don't need John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle to go score 35, 40 points theoretically to win this game. They're going to try and ride their defense. I think Brent Venables, they kept everything back. They were as plain and basic as possible against Illinois State. I think Oklahoma's defense is going to be ready for this. They're going to play really well. And again, they don't need John Mateer in the offense to go light it up. Just take care of the football. Don't give Michigan any short fields. Take advantage of the short fields if they come. If Oklahoma can force some turnovers, and they'll be in pretty good shape. So I do think Oklahoma's going to get the job done. They'll protect home field on Saturday in a kind of a low-scoring, grinded-out type of game. I got like 24-17, something like that. But I do think Oklahoma will win on Saturday.
All right.
Meanwhile, over on the other side, I think Martindale held a lot back defensively last week against New Mexico. It's New Mexico, right? He's going to get after John Mateer. I think there's just no two ways about it. I think Mateer is one of the better quarterbacks in college football. If you sit back and allow this guy to pick you apart with his gunslinging ability, he'll do so. So I think he is going to come after him. And then I think on the back end, Michigan, they showed the ability last week with this secondary to really close and break on the football and tackle in the open field. I think they're going to rely on it and hit hard. I think they're going to rely on their secondary to do that. So I feel like that's going to be the difference on the defensive side of the football. On the offensive side of the football, they're going to run it. They're going to run it, and they're going to run it. And the difference, I think the key element that we didn't see last week that's going to make a difference this week is the addition of Bryce Underwood to the running game. And I think that is going to allow Michigan to squeak this one out on the road. They're going to win their first big game of the season.
All right, okay. Like I said, you guys partied like to see. That's what I like to see. We'll see how that pans out on Saturday. Josh was saying, appreciate your time breaking all that down before we get to that 14-18 matchup. Don't forget the conversation continues with our college football insiders, always breaking up in their notebooks and sharing all the details they have. All you got to do is use that QR code and wherever you get those pods to listen.